A war going on outside, and every time I look around, they killing my kind. There's a war going on outside, and every time I look around, they killing my kind. There's a war going on outside, and every time I look around, they killing my kind. There's a war going on outside, and every time I look around, they killing my kind. It's all within the mind, it won't be televised. The systematic war that's happening outside. There's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. Dying just to live and living just to die. To the revolutionary, the answer revolution. Against those who salute and those who bring solution. Those who want the fuels and those who bring confusion. Now with 3/4 of a human and that's their constitution. They could lynch me, cut off my feet, gun down my entire family. Treated like their property that they bought off Oxford Street, Memphis, Tennessee, and wonder why there's poverty. Race riot, 1866, they keep our history. Statue of a clan elite, no union for the black to see. They killed Dr. King, that their southern hospitality. So back to life and back to reality. Stop planning for the war or be another casualty.
For inviting me out, I want to thank the masjid for bringing me, and I'm going to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and hear me speak. I never like to take people's time for granted, especially when you're dealing with black folks, because sometimes we are not our own priority. So I want to thank you all for coming on out. What we're going to do tonight, it is 7:30 your time. So I'm going to go until 8:30 talking about the miseducation machine, because that's very important. Then we're going to take a 15-minute break. And then I'm going to go from 8:45 to 9:45 on black male-female relationships. During the break, you will have an opportunity to get my book signed for those of you who choose to purchase it. It's available right outside in the lobby, as well as many of my DVD, CD products, and t-shirts. So that will be a time for me to sign some books. And then at the end of tonight's presentation, we'll have a little bit more time to sign some books as well. When we're done here tonight, and I want to put this out there to Brother Ty, because I'm going to give him the final word. Because I don't get to Memphis often, as I said, this is only my second visit. If there's a place where we can go and just have a social for people who want to ask me questions, parents might have paperwork they need me to see about their child. Some of you might want to have some questions with me. I don't mind doing that after tonight's presentation. We just need a place to do it, whether it's on campus or otherwise. Having said that, I want to get right into it. There's a war against African American boys in this country. The war is deliberate. It is not by accident, and the war is not the result of underpaid teachers. The war is not the result of old textbooks. The war is not the result of schools that have fallen out of disrepair. The miseducation machine that is operating against all African children, but particularly our boys, is by design and deliberate intent. It's important for you to understand that, because too many of you are engaging in conversations that suggest the reason why our young people, our young men, are not being successful in school is because they don't value education. Some of you are falling for the argument that says the reason only 1 out of every 4 African American boys graduates from high school in America is because of rap music. Some of you are falling for the propaganda that says the reason the test scores are low is because they come from single parent homes. Well, guess what? What about the boys who come from 2-parent homes? What about the African American boys where the mother is a doctor and the father is a lawyer? What about the ones who do their homework? What about the ones who come to school every day? I'm telling you that the war operates irrespective of poverty, irrespective of single motherhood, irrespective of whether or not his pants are sagging, and irrespective of whether or not he listens to hip hop. My goal for this first presentation is to convince everyone in here that there's 2 things we need to do to save ourselves. One is we're going to have to build independent schools for our children. We have to do it. Obama's not going to do it. Obama won't even admit there's black people in America. The State Department of Education of Tennessee isn't going to do it. The local school board of Memphis isn't going to do it. And why aren't they going to do it? Because there's one simple thing that every school district in Memphis could do that would break the back of the miseducation machine. One simple thing. What is it? Give every African American boy an African American male teacher. You cut special ed in half overnight. You cut school dropout in half overnight. You cut so-called ADHD in half overnight. You eliminate Ritalin prescriptions, Adderall prescriptions, conservative prescriptions, and Medicaid prescriptions overnight. You increase high school diplomas overnight. You cut gangs off overnight just by giving every black boy a teacher who is of the same gender and the same race as he. So why don't they do that? Because education in America, public, private, parochial, or charter, is the queendom of the middle-class white female. That's her industry. That's her agency. That's her institution. And if you're going to give black boys a black male teacher, you're going to have to lay off thousands of privileged white women. America's never going to let that happen. Why? Because this social order, which was controlled by the racism before Obama, and will be controlled by even more racism after, is never going to inconvenience a white person for the benefit of an African. If you don't understand white supremacy, nothing else you study, read, watch, or experience will make any sense. Some of you are still ideologically tripping over the Michael Dunn case. Some of you are still intellectually masturbating over Zimmerman's acquittal. It makes no sense to you because you're looking at it through the lens of common sense. White supremacy isn't ran on common sense. White supremacy is ran on white privilege and power. And only if you look at it through that lens will it make any sense to you. So now, the American social order has created, give me that next slide, Queen. She might have stepped, oh, she back there. There we go. The American social order has created a 5-stage rite of passage for every black boy in this country. For my brothers in the audience, some of you may have escaped this rite of passage. Many of us did not. We fell victim at one level or another. Rites of passage. We talk about needing a rites of passage for black boys. Many of our communities, our boys don't have a rites of passage. But white supremacy has one. What is their rite of passage for black boys? I need to add a 6th step. I've decided to separate special education from miseducation. Because the word of special ed is so big, it can't be housed under miseducation alone. Also, many of you will think because you are not special educated or your child was not special educated that you somehow escaped. So, the first stage is miseducation. What is this? This means from preschool to 3rd grade, we're going to deliberately undereducate and miseducate the black boy. On purpose! Somebody say, Dr. Johnson, that's a bit extreme. How can you say that teachers would dare deprive a baby of an adequate education? Well, why don't you read the United States Department of Education's report on school suspension and expulsion that came out only 2 years ago that said black boys in preschool, you do know what preschool is. That's 3, 4, and 5. And black boys in kindergarten, that's 5 and 6. And black boys in the 1st grade, that's 5, 6, and 7. Broke a record in the United States for having the highest suspension and expulsion rate in the country. Let me ask you a question. What in the hell can a 5-year-old do? to be put out of school for the rest of his childhood? What can a preschooler do to be put out of school for the rest of his childhood? What can a first grader do to be put out of school for the rest of his education? So you don't have to believe me. Look at the statistics. They miseducate them from pre-K to third, and then they pull out special education, fourth grade to seventh. Now, I'm a school psychologist, one of the few black male school psychologists in the country. I am the gatekeeper of special ed. That's what we're called. Because we decide who goes in, who stays in, and who comes out. The problem with school psychology, the gatekeepers of special ed, is what? 99% of all of them in this country are something other than black. That means the people who are testing your children and diagnosing them with such invisible disabilities like reading disability and math disability and emotional and behavioral disturbance, and let me not forget mild mental retardation, which has been changed by President Obama. It's now mild intellectual disability. 99% of them are something other than the child's culture. That's a problem. Even if the psychologist is not a racist, it's still a problem because they're not culturally competent. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. When your son comes to my office, soon when he walks in and sit down, because I used to be a black boy, I know whether or not he got an attitude. I know whether or not he's going to try to BS his way through this test. I know whether or not he's tired. I know whether or not he's trying. I know whether or not he cares or not. Because I'm from the same culture. Our nonverbal nuances are totally different than they would be for a white kid. But if I'm not African American, and this child fails this IQ test, and he ends up with an IQ score of a 60, and now he's looking like he has a mild mental retardation problem, if I'm white, I might call retardation when it was only an episode of laziness. And you do know in America, the black boy is 4 times as likely as the white boy to be diagnosed as retarded. There's no mystery. I know why. Because our boys are showing up, not doing their best, and the psychologists are scoring them like they tried. What is the conduit? What is the conduit of all testing? Interest and motivation. Black kids routinely score 20% lower than what they could have just because they don't feel like it. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And you know why they don't feel like it? Because many of you are raising black boys for the prisons. Many of you are not fulfilling the number one responsibility of someone raising a black male. And what is that? To teach him discipline. He must have it. I need some water. Brother Ty, hook a brother up. I was in Gary, Indiana the other night. Somehow caught a cold up there. Didn't get a chance to go to Michael Jackson's home, but maybe next time. The American social order is waiting to destroy any black boy who doesn't have self-control. Thank you. Okay, you didn't get this from nobody working for the FBI, right? No FBI work. No FBI work. I don't need that. Okay, this lid was off. No sir, no sir. You're not going to get me. No sir. Damn that, okay? My school not open yet. What is discipline, black parents? It's the ability to teach your boy, that young man, how to do what needs to be done when it got to be done, irrespective of whether he likes it or not. Let me give you an example. You here right now, listen to me. Now, for half of y'all wonder why you didn't bring him with you. But there may have been a good reason why, because he needs to hear me as much as you do. He might supposed to be home doing his chores. He might supposed to be babysitting. He might supposed to be cleaning his room. But can you say 100% equivocally that you know he's doing what you told him to do? Most of us, our kids don't do what they got to do unless we watching them. Because we haven't raised the child with discipline. And do you know why? A lot of us like to take a break from parenting. Y'all do know we take breaks, right? You raise them until about the 5th grade, and then you take a break from 6th to 9th. Y'all know what the hell I'm talking about. And then when he's in the 9th grade, 14, you realize that he's starting to become like the ones you wanted to keep him away from. And then you try to get him back. But discipline is foreign to your house because discipline wasn't a part of the culture, so now he's resisting. And now you're putting your hands on him. You damn near have to threaten his life. Not because he was a bad child, but you let him go too far away from the path. And when you let a child go too far away from the path, then you have to resort to extreme discipline measures to bring them back. It's called taking a break. Let me explain something to y'all. You are going to put your time in now, or you're going to put it in later. You can raise her from birth to 17, or you can raise her from 17 to 34. Now that might be on your couch, or it might be in jail, but you want to put your time in. So whether that's going back and forth twice a week, taking her money, putting money on the books, paying for lawyers, or you're going to put your time in. You tried to cheat when he was a child, you're going to make it up when he's an adult. And then some of us got the audacity to say, I don't know what's wrong with him. Let me tell you what's wrong with our child. All of our children, everyone in Memphis, pants sagging, dropout, dope head, dope fiend, dope seller, domestic abuser, whatever his vote is, you are his problem. The black community created that crisis in youth that we got. That's right. Because once upon a time, we used to make a way for our young people. Once upon a time, they could go to the church or go to the mosque or go to a community organization and say, look, my teacher mistreated me. And somebody had come to his aid. We don't do that no more. In fact, he comes home and tells his mother, Mom, I got suspended today for something I didn't do. Now, sometimes he might be lying, but a lot of times he's telling the truth. But you being a woman, trust the white supremacy. You take this teacher side over your son. And so now he can't trust you or the teacher. See, let me explain something to y'all. This miseducation thing ain't about education at all. Do you know what it's about? It's about a black male child suffocating because he's being exposed to too much feminine energy. Did y'all hear what I just said? He got a feminine energy at home. It may be a positive black mother, but it's still feminine energy. His spirit craves the masculine balance. He goes to school, he got to deal with a reactionary white female. So he got sexism and racism in school. And you wonder why the hell they dropping out like this. A child can't make themselves put up with something that they know was not designed for them. So when they drop out, we look at them like there's something wrong with them. We don't want our kids dropping out, but I need y'all to understand the problem ain't them. It's you in the system. If we know that these middle-class white women are not going to adequately teach our kids what they still there for. And don't tell me because we can't afford to buy them or build them a school of our own, because we know that's a lie. After all, how much money you spent on Christmas this past season? How much money you going to spend on Easter? How much money you going to spend on the 4th of July? And I got a big problem with that holiday. July 4th, 1776. How in the hell you find the audacity to cook pork chops on a day when our ancestors were still under enslavement? July 4th, 1776, my great-great-great-great-great-grandmother Betsy Bailey, who raised Frederick Douglass, was a 2-year-old slave in Maryland. Do you think she was celebrating? Do you think she had time for some scribs and scripts? She was working for the master. And you got the audacity to go and celebrate your slave master's freedom from his master while our ancestors were still slaves? And then you got the nerve to turn around and tell me slavery over? Listen, you can take the slave out of slavery all you want. take the chains off, dress them up, send them to Harvard or Howard. But until the slave takes the chains out of himself, he'll never be free. He'll never be free. See, there's two types of free black people in America. Freedom, F-R-E-E-D-O-M, and freedom, F-R-E-E-D-U-M-B. What are you free to do, freedom people? You're free to buy other people's hair, marry other people's daughters. You're free to spend your money with anybody who don't look like you. And then you're free to act like you colorblind. You're the only people in this country who claim not to see color. I've seen nothing like it in my life. You can have an East Indian, an Arab, Korean, and an Italian. What are you? I'm an East Indian. What are you? I'm Korean. What are you? I'm Saudi. What are you? I'm Italian. And then you go to the black person. What are you? I'm a human being. And then think you being godly by doing it. Listen to me. All people naturally give their children a built-in cultural privilege. The Italian is going to look out for the Italian child before they look out for anybody else's. The Chinese are going to look out for Chinese children before they look out for yours. The Afghani is going to look out for the Afghani baby before he look out for yours. They're not colorblind or culture blind, but you are. Do you know what that means? That means black children not only suffer from white racism, they then got to turn around and suffer from neglect at the hands of their own community because you don't want to admit that racism exists. That's right. So they get miseducated, then they get put in special ed. And what is the weapon of choice in special ed? Something called the specific learning disability. Specific learning disability. Now, what exactly is a specific learning disability? Well, according to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act 2004, signed by former President George W. Bush, a specific learning disability is a disorder and one of the basic psychological processes involved in learning that manifests itself as an imperfect ability to read, write, count, speak, listen, so forth and so on. He said it was a what? Psychological disorder. It was a disorder and one of the basic processes involved in learning that affect how well you accrue new information. It must be scientific. But is that how your son ended up in special ed? Your son ended up in special ed just because his skills was low. I want y'all to understand something. Learning disabilities cannot be proven. Let me say this again. Reading disability is your opinion. It ain't a fact. Math disability was the white psychologist's opinion. That's not no fact. You're talking to an expert. When I diagnose or don't diagnose, I'm making the best professional guesstimate. It's a guesstimate. Learning disability is a guesstimate. And then you take somebody else's opinion about your child's ability to grow, and you superimpose it on your son. And then some of y'all trifling enough to tell Raheem he learning disabled. Don't worry about it, baby. You LD and read. Don't worry about it, sugar. You LD in math. Do you know what you just did? You just took somebody else's opinion of your child and created an imaginary glass ceiling over which they will never grow. If you want to believe the psychologist's opinion, that's your fault. But don't you dare make it your child's reality. You never tell children their diagnoses. You don't tell them when they LD. You don't tell them when they autistic. You don't tell them when they ADHD. You don't tell them when they emotionally and behaviorally disturbed. And why don't you? Because it breeds low self-esteem. It breeds learned helplessness. It breeds high school dropout, and it will bring his ass right into jail. You keep those opinions to yourself. ADHD. Are you kidding me? Half your kids in here on drugs. Crack for kids. Off of a glow-in-the-dark, invisible, can't-be-proven diagnosis. Your son's strung out on Concerta, strung out on Meditate. Have y'all been watching the news? Last night from my hotel, right here in Memphis. Guess what flashed on the news last night? Risperdal. There's a class action lawsuit by a group of lawyers against the manufacturers of Risperdal. Now, what is Risperdal? Also known as risperidone. It's a psychiatric medicine that they give to bipolar patients. But they also give it to black boys because they say it helps them calm down. It arrests the anger and the mood. They give it to black boys. They say got an angry mood. Well, guess what they found out? They found out that risperidone, raises the amount of prolactin hormone in the bloodstream of boys. Ladies, what is prolactin, sisters? That's the hormone that increases in you after you give birth to a child so you can grow breasts and feed them the milk. So guess what the hell Risperdal is doing to black boys all over America right this second? Causing them to grow breasts and lactate. So guess what you're going to have to get her for Kwanzaa? A kente cloth bra. I told you don't give them the damn drug when my book came out. When did my book come out? March 6, 2013. But you ain't want to listen to me. It's right there in my book. Oh no, he's just radical. That's what y'all said. Now the white folks is telling you on TV, everything I said in my book is coming to pass now. But you don't listen to me because I'm black. Doesn't matter if I got 6 degrees from 3 white colleges, you're still not going to listen to me because I'm black. And what I say you never heard before, so it must be a lie. Umar Johnson said the learning disability is an opinion. Why we never heard that before if it's the truth? Why we never heard black psychologists tell us that the learning disability is a fraud? You know why? Because they too busy pimping the damn fraud. They too busy pimping the damn ADHD. They too busy pimping the Ritalin, the Adderall, the Metadate, Strattera, Prozac, Paxil. Not all of them. I got colleagues who are sincere, don't you get me wrong. But few are going to do what I do because to stand up and take the stand that I take, it can cost you a lot of money. You know how much money you can make pimping disabilities? I would be a multi-millionaire if I just diagnosed our kids with anything the school told me to. I'd be filthy damn rich. Schools are looking for psychologists who are just diagnosed. And why? Because they get paid every time I label one of your babies. Learning disability is a check. ADHD is a check. Autism is a check. Speech and language is a check. And yeah, we do have children with speech and language problems. And I don't have a problem with speech and language because you don't go to a special ed class with a speech and language problem. You get speech therapy. But guess what? I got charter schools down here. Let me tell you what some of the charter schools are doing. Because they public schools too, you know. Charter schools are misdiagnosing black kids with speech and language problems they don't even have. Why? Because if they're a speech only, if it's a speech only child, which means they don't need special ed, which means you ain't got to hire no teacher, that means you make all the special ed money and you ain't got to spend none of it. Oh yes. And don't get me wrong, this ain't all white people doing this to our kids. I want to be clear. Negroes too! In fact, most of my fights to keep our kids out of special ed ain't done with white folks. Black people who grew up in the same neighborhood, went to college, came back, got their principal cert, got their doctorate, got their teacher license, and now they special educating the kids themselves. That's right, kente cloth, that don't mean a damn thing to me. Hair locked out, change your name, and you still pimping black children. You better be careful of these Afrocentric charter schools. Because a lot of these Afrocentric charter schools ain't nothing but European schools with a kente cloth and a drum beat. I said it, quote me. Quote me. That's right. And they get over on y'all even more. Because you would never suspect them. Because this is a black school. If they say Raheem is learning disabled, they must know what they talk about because they opened the school to help the kids in the neighborhood. Oh, really? How about they open the school to give themselves a free check that they ain't got to work for? Who you playing with? Black charter schools just as trifling as the white ones. They will special educate your child just as fast. I'm telling you what I know. Well, she wouldn't do that because she taught me. She taught my grandma. She taught my great-grandma. Yeah, that's why all y'all was in special ed. of y'all don't want to talk to me. Why? Because you say, Dr. Umar, I think my son really do got a reading problem. Can you look at his paperwork? Some of y'all going to walk out on me because you know what I'm saying? This is not a specific learning discipline, but he's been struggling since the first grade, Dr. Umar. Everybody said, I took him to Silver, I took him to the tutoring program at the college. He's been everywhere. Dr. Umar, no, he really has a problem. What did I tell you? These are opinions. They're not facts. But how do you explain it? How do you explain my son being in the 8th grade and still can't read? Okay? If he ain't learning to say, we work with him, we make him do his homework, we took him to this tutor, we took him to that tutor, da-da-da-da-da. So if it's not a specific learning disability, then what is it, Dr. Johnson? Since you know it all, I'll tell you what it is. It's a sloppy and lazy as hell disability is what it is. Half your kids are lazy as hell. That's right. The test scores are low because they lazy. And in your house, there's no consequences for being lazy. That's right. He lazy and still on the football team. He lazy and still on the basketball team. She lazy and still cheerleading. You the damn problem. Talk to me about no white folks. What are you doing? I come to your house. Do the kids even do homework? Half your house's homework is extinct. There is no homework. You ain't even got a damn table for them to do that. I ain't talking about poverty, I'm talking about priorities because he got on a $100 pair of sneakers. Talking about no poverty. Oh, I can't afford it, but you can afford the latest Jordans though. We got a priority problem in the black community. We ain't got a money problem. Priorities are screwed up. Your hair comes first. And while we're on the subject, see, I didn't come here to make friends. My job is to tell you the truth. That's my assignment from my ancestors. Frederick Douglass can't be here no more, so he sent his nephew. I might be a better speaker than him. We'll talk about that in heaven. But anyway, black woman, respectfully. I don't agree with brothers going outside their race. No, I don't. I don't. But before you can complain about a black man dating a white woman, I need you to look in the mirror and ask yourself, have you been trying to be one yourself? You cannot get mad at anybody for wanting the original instead of a bootleg version. So only those black women who are not trying to look like white women, only you few, have the right to criticize. Now, I see some brothers clapping. I'm going to deal with you next. First of all, Negro. The only reason why she perming and weaving and straightening is because you won't look at it if she did not. So don't you clap too loud. This comes right back to black men. Dr. Umar, sounds like you're up there teaching hatred. Why are you telling people that they can't marry outside their race? Do you hate white? It ain't about hating no white folks. I'm not going to teach hate at my school. It's about loving the black woman. Understanding that only 1 out of every 4 of them are going to get married. Understanding that too many of them are raising them kids on their own. Understanding that so many of them want a man and can't find one. I ain't got nothing against the white woman. I'm not going to disrespect her. I wouldn't want no white man disrespecting my 2 little girls. But I understand something as a nationalist. Not a black nationalist. I don't know what the hell that is. I'm a Pan-African nationalist. If I care about the nation, I must stand for what is in its best interest. And what is in the best interest of black children is to see healthy black families. They need to see mothers who are glad to be married and fathers who are glad to be married to them. Because guess what? Our children learn to hate marriage as much from married couples as they do from unmarried couples. When you grow up in a house where all your mother do is talk about how she wished she never married your father. We're going to get on that in the second presentation. After the break, we're going to talk about male-female relationships. We're going to talk about why a lot of us keep running into the same bad types of people over and over. We're going to talk about the spiritual vampires in Memphis. We're going to talk about the 6 types of men that women need to be careful of. the pimp, the player, the impregnator, couch potato, Mr. Professional. And we got to talk about the 6 types of pathological women. The home wrecker, the healer, Miss Hot in the Pants, homicidal honey, high maintenance.
Man,
Y'all laughing because y'all up in here. Hallelujah! So let us keep on going. Special ed. I just got an invitation to go speak in Boston, Massachusetts, 60th anniversary of the Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas decision. Now, the Brown versus Board of Education's decision of 1954 said what? That you can no longer use race as a factor in education. Race, you cannot judge kids and separate kids based on color. It didn't say you couldn't separate. It said you can't do it based on color. It didn't say you couldn't